For 10,000 years, a legendary creature has been completely erased from the Earth, and we only know of its existence through fossils. Is it possible to bring it back in today's world? It sounds like something out of a science fiction film, doesn't it? Which film was it again? We've started this week with some truly incredible news. Scientists have managed to do it. Well, partially, yes, you heard it right. An extinct animal is once again roaming the Earth. The iconic predator of the Ice Age, the fearsome wolf, has returned. At least that's the claim of the company that achieved this. However, it's more accurate to say that instead of bringing these creatures back from extinction, a synthetic organism resembling the Uta was created, and I'll explain why in the coming moments. But let's continue following the story presented by Colossal. Last October, the first wolf pups were born, and they were announced to the world this week, 6 months later. They named one of them Remus and the other Romulus. Romulus sounds like Rome, doesn't it? There's a connection, which I'll explain in a bit. When these two pups were born, they looked like little puppies. At just 15 days old, they started taking their first steps with their tiny paws. By the time they were a month old, the pups were different from regular puppies. At this point in their development, they were in a transitional stage. At 1 month, they learned to growl and chew, and they ventured out of their den to take their first steps into the real world. 3 months later, in early 2025, the socialization phase began for these pups. This is one of the most critical stages of their development. They had been weaned off milk. By playing, they sharpened their instincts and began strengthening their bond with each other. Their teeth had emerged, and they were playing with deer antlers and branches, which not only helped their teeth grow stronger, but also developed their bones. By the time they were 5 months old, a new instinct was awakening in them. The pups began understanding hierarchy, challenging one another, and learning the rules of their pack. Though they seemed to be playing by pushing and shoving each other, these movements were actually serious preparations for pack life. Now, it's worth reiterating that these wolf species went extinct 10,000 years ago. Currently, there are only 2 of these wolves running freely on a special 2,000-acre enclosed land. Scientists managed to breed another female wolf after the first 2 male pups. Her name is Khaleesi. These first wolves, Ulukt, were only 6 months old, but they had already reached a length of 1.2 meters and weighed around 40 kilograms. Can you imagine how massive an adult Ulukt would be? They can almost reach 2 meters long, they say. So how exactly was an extinct species brought back, or were they really brought back? Are these fearsome wolves identical to those that went extinct? And perhaps more importantly, what other animals will be brought back in the future? In this video, we'll dive into the incredible details of this groundbreaking story. But first, what exactly is this fearsome wolf? How different is it from the wolves we know today? Its Latin name, Canis dirus, translates to fearsome wolf in English, and it truly is an intimidating, terrifying creature. These direwolves were enormous predators that roamed North and South America during the Ice Age. They are the bigger, more muscular, and more powerful cousins of the wolves we know today. They had larger heads, incredibly strong jaws, and were, in essence, true mega-predators. These wolves had a completely different ancestry from today's wolves, to the point that some scientists consider them a separate species. So why did these colossal creatures disappear? As the Ice Age came to an end, the climate changed, and the massive animals, like mammoths and giant bison, that Ulux hunted also vanished. Ulux had specialized in hunting such massive prey, so when these animals disappeared, they couldn't survive either, and their species went extinct about 10,000 years ago. Scientists set to work with fossils of these terrifying wolves that were thousands of years old. They extracted DNA from a 13,000-year-old direwolf tooth and a 72,000-year-old ear bone. They then analyzed this DNA and decoded the genetic code of the fearsome wolf. But there's an interesting twist here. Instead of using the ancient DNA directly to bring the animals back, they used the DNA from present-day wolves. They took their genes and made just 20 small changes to them. Just 20 changes, and with those few modifications, the massive size, stronger muscles, and broader jaws of the Uluct emerged. Meanwhile, unlike standard cloning, this cloning method was done using special cells and endothelial progenitor cells extracted from blood samples. This method is both less invasive and has a much higher success rate. Using this modified genetic material, 45 embryos were produced, and these embryos were implanted into the wombs of surrogate mother dogs. Yes, the mothers of these pups were actually domestic dogs. By domestic, I mean carefully selected, healthy, large dogs. These dogs were used as surrogate mothers. The pups were born via cesarean section. A 4-person team performed the surgery, and another 4-person team took care of the pups. They only stayed with the surrogate mothers for a few days, after which they were fed with bottles. They were weaned off milk at 8 weeks of age. I have an interesting story and anecdote to share while researching this topic. Let me tell you this. Shortly after the birth of these pups, Romulus and Remus, when they were just a few weeks old, one of the veterinarians was weighing them, and at that moment, she began to hum a song. I think it was from The Little Mermaid. She was humming the tune, raising and lowering her voice, and then something unexpected happened. When these tiny, fearsome wolf pups heard the song, they began howling for the first time in their lives. Everyone in the room was stunned because this howl was a sound that hadn't been heard in 1,000 years. In other words, Romulus and Remus had seemingly called upon a sound from the past. And when you think about it, it sends chills down your spine. Because when you consider history and think about why these names were chosen, it's because these are legendary twin brothers, Romulus and Remus, the symbolic figures of the Roman Empire. The city of Rome, founded by these twins, was built by these first 2 people. And the most famous symbol of these twins is actually a wolf mother, dating back 12,000 years. This is an incredible coincidence that links history and mythology, don't you think? The fact that these wolf pups were named Romulus and Remus makes it all the more meaningful. But there's a question. Will this species truly return? How and when? Right now, these fearsome wolves are being cared for more like pets, and in fact, the resurrection of this species is a highly sensitive issue. It's not only scientific, but also ethically complex. Yes, the wolves are back, but have they truly returned? Are these creatures truly of this planet, or are they merely human-made organisms derived from a similar species? These questions are still waiting for answers. But with this return, another question comes to mind. What about other extinct animals? Yes, there are other projects pushing the boundaries of science. Will mammoths return? If these fearsome wolves, mammoths, and even Tasmanian tigers come back. What will that mean for our world?